Faith.
Hi,
And you are?
Matt Peacock.
I thought so, but I wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
So thank you. You'll take
I'll be somebody else today if you want me to, though.
No,
Okay.
I need to know who everybody is. Cindy knew you guys for so long that
Right.
she just didn't have to ask any
Knew when we
questions.
came in, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we are on air, and it is 4 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started with the two items we have on the agenda today. So welcome everybody to the City Council Community Planning and Transportation Committee meeting for Thursday, June 27th, 2024. Like I said, we have two topics on the agenda. The first one being our monthly public transit report and discussion with city staff regarding our local public transit system, funding, projects, ridership, all those things. And so we'll go ahead and get started with that, and Taylor's here to lead us through that discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Chair and Council. I know this is our last meeting for a couple months, so hopefully it won't be too exciting, but just for reference, in August, I'll come back with probably two reports, one for June and one for
Perfect.
July, so you have that completed fiscal year of ridership and also the beginning of the year for FY25. So hopefully I keep saying this, but hopefully our fleet maintenance and vehicle procurement section in the memo gets a little bit shorter in the next month or two, especially as we onboard some vehicles and get some of these vehicles in the fleet. On the new route network section on page 3 of your packet, page 2 of the memo, talks a little bit about the minor service changes, really adding a couple of bus stops to the routes, a few bus stops to the routes that we think will enhance the service, but it will not cost operational dollars. We're not, lengthening the routes or anything like that. So we'll get into that in just a minute. On the grants section, we are making a little bit of progress on the overhead chargers. We're working with a company to see about engaging them off of a competitive bid contract to be kind of a turnkey provider for that project. So hopefully be a little bit more efficient. We're still working through that. And then on microtransit, we'll get into the ridership in a minute, but we are moving forward with that year 2 extension, and you should see that on July 9th at your first council meeting on that agenda. One agenda item for OU and one agenda item with VIA to extend that going into the second year.
And again, that includes the expanded boundary that we asked
Yep,
for at Noble Parkway and
right.
one northern.
So if you pull up the website or find a brochure, that zone that's in there, that's the same zone there.
Okay.
Um,
The vans, the 5 paratransit vans, and then in addition, 6 CNG cutaway transit vans for paratransit fleet. So does that mean there are 11 new paratransit vehicles?
Yes.
And are they all Embark Plus vehicles, or how is that working?
Right, they're all Embark Plus.
Okay.
The 5 Ford Transit vans are actually in the shop right now. We're finalizing onboarding them this month, maybe bleed over into next month. The 6 cutaways, we just came to council for authorization of that purchase and acceptance of the grant for that last month, or this month, earlier this month. So we made that order, and that's probably 6 to 8 months turnaround, so we won't see those till around Christmas time at the earliest.
Okay. The 5 vans, do those get us towards a path of on-demand?
Not
Can they
necessarily.
be for that purpose? Like we've talked about Embark Plus being, evolving into an on-demand app-based
Sure.
type thing.
I think all the paratransit vehicles could be used in that way. It's more of the
Just
technology, software side than more of the physical vehicle side. The vehicles have different characteristics. Some can handle more wheelchairs than others. Some have more seats than others. Obviously, the Ford Transit is, if you've seen any around town, it's smaller. It's actually rear loading instead of side loading like we have traditionally. So I think all of them could be used for that purpose, but these are just replacements to bring the paratransit fleet more into a state of good repair.
Okay.
So
And the new route network part?
yes, that's what I was just about to get
okay.
into after the memo part. So sorry I don't have it up on the screen, but we are looking at adding some bus stops here. If you have it in your packet, on the route 111, or I'm sorry, the route 112 near Campus Corner and McFarland Methodist Church. We used to have a bus stop on the east side of University outside of the food pantry. That was actually a OU bus route. So when they changed their routes, that bus stop went away. We left the pole there because we thought maybe in the future with this realignment we may add it back. So we're looking at not changing that route at all. It already goes by there, but adding that bus stop on the east side back in, and then creating a new bus stop on the west side near the parking lot for the church. So that was actually a request from McFarland too, but that was still in the back of our minds. Again, no operational changes or issues. It's just adding a little bit more access to this area and to that new, I think they call it service center. They rebuilt the food pantry into, it's much bigger.
Yeah.
I think McFarland Service Center, I think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
happy to,
there's a pantry on the bottom and then a second floor where I think services are.
right.
So,
Happy to add a little bit more access to that area with some infrastructure that was already there historically, but not a lot of effort on our part to add that back in. So that's the first change. And then the second one, I know we heard a lot about the lack of access between Alameda and Lindsay on 12th Street on the east side. So this doesn't fix all of those issues, but it does get us a little bit better to the south of Alameda. And we had a lot of a pushback on taking away the service from Triad Village Drive and 12th area, specifically around the Thunderbird Clubhouse and
Cottonwood.
thank you, Cottonwood Ridge condos. So we had to start a minor detour that's actually shown on this packet here, going down 12th and doing that due to peak travel times, the bus couldn't make this left turn all the way. So when we started doing that detour, we started kicking around if this could be permanent, and that's kind of where this came from, is we can make it within the current route. Timing adds a little bit more access to the areas that went away with the route changes, and hopefully make it a little more accessible to these destinations.
And
So,
you found that having the bus go to 12th, turn left, go down to Triad Village, turn left, and then go that back through and come back was the best.
well, and hopefully this map portrays it better, but what the bus is going to do on its outbound trip, it's going to stay the same, go west on Alameda, north on 12th. It'll go to the roundabout, come back, and it'll go south on 12th, Triad Village, and then east on Alameda.
And come back up. And, okay.
It won't go back left on
Okay,
Triad
it won't go
Village.
down that, it'll just go, okay.
It'll just go down to Triad Village, go back east to Vicksburg, and then back in on its inbound. So that'll a little bit more access to this area. And again, we had an existing bus stop that went away. That's outside of the senior residence there on the curve of Triad Village. But we're adding a new bus stop just to the east of 12th. That it's about 100 feet from the crosswalk there. So pretty close to that intersection, but also close to those destinations we talked about. So.
Okay, I think that's good. That hits on a lot of the urgent care across the street, hits on the Cottonwood Ridge apartments, and it hits on Thunderbird Clubhouse and the condos and the senior living center that's right around there. So I think that addresses multiple spots that may have lost service, if you
Yeah.
will.
And again, low hanging fruit, we thought this was a great change to make, no operational issues at all. It just can work within the existing route timing, so.
Perfect, love it. Councilmember Grant?
I've mentioned this before the meeting started, but Adult Wellness Education Center had a bus stop before, and I've heard since it opened that people would like to see it return. Obviously, they can email transit@normanok.gov to put those requests in, but generally, how many requests did you get before we ended up with these new bus stops and in this added route? Did it take like 10, 20?
For these, before we made the route changes, we heard a lot about this 12th and Triad Village change. So I think historically that was there. We heard a little bit about the awe as well. These just came up because they were, again, low hanging fruit. The change from going down Porter for the 120 run route instead of going and proposing it to go down Finley, I don't know that we've really flushed that out. We were trying to see through a survey with Healthy Living and through the AW if what the need was. You know, are they riding paratransit? Would they ride the fixed route bus? I need to circle back around with Dr. Dillon on where that survey came out. But we can certainly start exploring if there are any operational issues going down Finley. We did put in that one bus stop with a shelter there at Porter and Johnson. That we could certainly look at moving that shelter if we need to, but I think we still need to make sure that it would fit in within the timing of the current route.
I'd say, okay.
I was wondering what that threshold might be, like if enough, like 100 people were saying, this is kind of impacting me, or even just looking at the connectivity that we're adding with these two, just to think about getting them all in that.
Yeah.
Hopefully I can come back in 2 months and we'll be able to answer some of those questions for you. But again, these were just kind of easy, low-hanging fruits with that we could add on and not adjust too much of the timing on the routes, if at all. So
I was gonna say, Porter and Johnson, was it, with the shelter?
yeah,
I think the only complaint, if you will, around that was for people with limited mobility, getting from that area all the way over to Finley. So
yeah, and we were hoping that with the redevelopment of the area, that corridor, if you will, on
Like
Johnson,
yeah.
going through the hospital area would get more accessible. I went out and walked it when we were first talking about this, and really the only inaccessible area is like the last little bit.
Yeah, there's no sidewalk at all. Yeah.
From, I don't remember, I had it drawn out how many feet it was, but it wasn't much from Finley to the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So we could look at making that more accessible if that would be adequate. Maybe we'll look at that too and see what our options are and the bus route change
we
and
can
see what
ask
the
Healthy
differences are.
Living's board too, because they would be plugged into those seniors that are making these requests,
Right.
that are filtering up, at least through me. I should point them more in your direction, it sounds like.
Yeah, we'd love to get that feedback directly to us so we can be proactive and go out and look at those things, and that way you guys don't have to wait a month or a few weeks to tell us. So.
Yeah, if the site plan that Norman Regional put forward for the redevelopment of the hospital campus, if that's what they do, then Johnson Street would get reconstructed and curve around, and new sidewalks would get put in. And
Scott, maybe,
That's the way I
do you remember
understand
the plan for that area with Johnson?
Yeah, it's been a while since
It has
I've looked
it,
at
like,
it
snake
directly,
through
but
and-
it does basically become completely redesigned from what it is today. It ties in at the same place at both ends basically, but it takes a different route through
Yeah.
the middle. So that is something that's part of the reason that we don't really want to do too much in there, because at some point it's going to be interrupted anyways. But we can certainly look into adding that little amount of sidewalk if we need to do it as a change order on our current sidewalk programs, or we can look at some other ways to see if we can find some funding to do that. I'll send out our sidewalk group to look at that and see what we can do to accommodate that, to make that more accessible. That's easy to do. So we'd be happy to look into that, and we can report back on that in August. But hopefully, we'll be bringing the sidewalk projects to you on July 9th for award. So we're that close to having the sidewalk programs for 2025 in place.
yeah, like I said too, with Johnson Street right there, it dips down and then it comes back up, and there's no trees, and I could see it being difficult for an older person perhaps trying to go from crossing Porter and then making it all over there. So I think it'll work really well when Johnson does get redone and the hospital building gets.
But of course, we have no information on the time frame
Yeah,
of
yeah.
Norman Regional Health Systems and when they're going to move forward with that or what they're going to do. But we certainly will watch that, and we try to stay aware of this area anyways. We'll make sure we're putting more eyes on it more frequently and try to see what we can do to make advancements in that area.
Perfect, yeah. I agree, if there's a way to look at that Finley stop, then that'd be great.
Good.
So, okay,
If I could get into the ridership just a little bit, and those changes should take effect end of July, the ones that are shown in your packet for those bus stops. So we operate on the schedule of the embark bid driver process. So by the union, they look at their scope of work twice a year now, Lamar? Twice a year, and the most senior ones can pick what routes and schedule they want to drive, and it goes down the list. So any changes we make adjust those schedules, and by the contract, we really can only make those changes during those times. So that's end of July will be one of those times.
So fixed routes are up 18, Monday through Friday, 18.2%. And then Saturday up 5.5%, and plus is up 3%.
Right. Fixed route ridership continues to be really strong. We're at 333,000 fiscal year to date through May, and it looks like if everything holds, hopefully we'll tip over the 400,000 mark, which would be 70,000 more than last year,
Okay.
which is a good number to be at. And then, like you said, the plus is pretty much holding steady there month to month.
Councilmember Peacock?
Thanks. Do we have any insight into what's driving the Lindsay Street numbers? I mean, because I'm seeing Lindsay East. I mean, I can kind of logically determine what that was from, but Lindsay West is up 125% from last year. And I'm
Yeah, and it's not so much comparing apples to apples.
Okay.
It's somewhat apples to oranges. So Lindsay West got extended from a 30-minute route to a 60-minute route.
Okay.
And went farther and encompassed some of the areas that the old Main Street route did.
So is that why Main Street's down and Lindsay Street's up?
Yeah,
then?
so
Okay.
it's kind of
Okay.
fluctuating back and forth.
Okay.
Main Street now goes through, University North Park area a lot more,
Right.
where, as we've been talking about, there's not development on Rock Creek up to Tecumseh before it gets to the hospital. So we kind of did that strategically, knowing that development would come and that route would be significant of importance in the future.
Right.
But with the route changes, they were so significant that some routes took this part, some took this, and that's why Lindsay West was projected to be the next one that needed the 30-minute frequency,
Gotcha.
which should come online in October with
Perfect.
the budget adoption and the Embark contract approval on Tuesday.
Excellent.
So that's a little bit of the reason. We could get into more details.
No, that
but-
makes sense. I just I knew there was some factor.
Yeah, once we get into October, we'll start comparing apples to
Apples.
apples again, right? So ridership change for the routes, how they operate now.
Yeah, but I'm just encouraged to see that, overall, they're up almost 20%.
Yeah.
From last year, regardless of, how things were manipulated. I think, that's just a positive trend.
And then on Norman On Demand, we're at 23,000, just over 23,000 riders for the service to date. So that's August 21st of last year through May. Again, we're looking at adding the second year with your approval of the contracts with OU and VIA on July 9th. And we're excited to see with another year, I think we saw a pretty good turnout for this service, especially the ridership per service hour. That's on the second page of the VIA report in that top table at 5.7 riders per service hour. That's really performing very well. According to VIA for their other services in the country. So I think that's for a 6-passenger minivan, not every van is having 6 riders on it every hour, but on average, if there's 2 vehicles out there, each of them have 3, it's a really good number for that service and how it operates, especially on demand. So hopefully with the school year starting up again in August, there will be another surge of excitement for that service, both general public and students, and we'll have another good year of that and continue to update you all on if we want to keep it going or do something different. So
Okay. I did have a few transit-related points or topics to bring up. In regard to the bus stops, if possible, maybe by our August meeting, if we could have, maybe before then, maybe you don't need to wait till then, I don't know, but we've talked about that stop on East Lindsay in front of Faculty Heights Park. That's a new stop.
on the westbound,
Yes, and about getting a bench or a shelter put in, preferably a shelter if possible. But that's a stop where I see people standing there every day when I drive by for sure, usually several people. And so,
There's no shade either.
and it's a busy street. So that's one I've noted. I know there's others too, specifically we've talked about this one before too, at the transit center, the stop that faces Porter.
Porter, yeah.
I'd like to maybe see that made into an official looking stop, because people are kind of just makeshift, sitting on the
Right.
ledge there and on the grass and whatnot. I'd maybe like to see it be a nice,
Yeah, we could,
if possible.
we could look at what we could add there, either at least a couple of maybe street furniture benches. We definitely want it to fit with the corridor project.
I like
that's
the people are
being
using the
completed, but-
ledge there to sit on. I think it's a good functional piece of the building for that.
Yeah. The only unfortunate part of that was the rocks from that planter being thrown out into the street and into the
gosh,
grass. So
great.
we took out the rocks and just put some mulch in there. But yeah, it is kind of a functional piece of furniture there. But maybe we can add a couple benches that match the Porter corridor, or
Yeah,
maybe even add another shelter that matches the
or
one.
an
at
overhang
Johnson.
right on the side of the building right there. Something maybe to make
But if
that.
they do need to get out of the heat, they could
Get
go up
under
into
there,
the
yeah.
transit center
Yeah.
under the awning right there, and keep a lookout. They'll be able to see the 24 bus pull up, and
Okay. But yeah, any other stops that stand out like that where we know if there's, I don't know, if they're close to a grocery store, they're close to a place where people might have stuff with them.
right.
If there's no bench, there's no shelter, if we can, I know we already have a plan to do stuff, but any ones that really stand out like that. But the one in front of Faculty Heights is just the one I see all the time, so. And then the one in front of the transit center too. And those were.
One item to remember though, when talking about the bus stops, is that it's rarely as simple as adding a shelter or adding a bench. We have to make sure that it's fully ADA accessible, which means we have companion
Pads has to
seating,
be-
we have to put pads, we may not have, in many instances, when we look at some of these situations, we actually want to have to do sidewalk work to make it fully ADA accessible. Most of the places we've done that in, but as we look at these, you know, we know that Tyler will put benches and Tyler will put the shelters out there, but we have to supply all the pads.
Right.
And so sometimes it comes down to we've got to find that additional funding from somewhere to be able to do those. So when we're evaluating these, we're looking at that, and then Tyler's also evaluating it from their interest in doing so also. But we want to make sure that anything we do meets full ADA
Absolutely.
compliance,
Absolutely.
because we definitely want to be fair to all of our citizens and users of the system.
And the right of way, if there's enough right of way to accommodate either a bench or shelter.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I probably already know the answer to this question, but is there any money left over in the Porter Streetscape project? For
No.
a pad there? Okay, I figured, hey, you gotta ask, you know?
To be honest, and I know we're going to do a capital update, but that project is nearing its end. Unfortunately, it has gone over time, so we're going to see some additional bills coming in for the contract administration. We don't have all those in yet. We did get confirmation today that we did get some extra funding, about $860,000, I think is the number,
It's good.
in that range, towards that project.
Okay.
That's going to help us with the overruns on that project. We pretty much, and then the other problem is with that being a bond project, we could only spend funds in that. I couldn't take those funds from that and take them to another, unless there's another bond, in another 2019 bond project, because we'd have to complete all the bond projects before we could take money out.
Sure.
Or add a project in is
No,
really
that
what we
makes-
do. We'd add a project into the bond. So that's a hard source to be able to use as a
Makes sense.
funding source.
Yeah.
But we'll check, and if there is some funding, and we will see if we can do something there. But we'll definitely spend some time looking at that. And we'll go out and look at it from a pro-ag ADA standpoint, so what we can do.
Appreciate
Yeah,
that.
yeah, keep us posted on that. I'm open to
820.
multiple funding options
go.
that might be available, so.
It was 820,000 additional dollars from ODOT through ACOG to the Porter Streetscape project.
Is that part of the large chunk that we were?
The $10 million
Yeah.
that they came up with and they allotted us, we're getting about 6.3 million total
Excellent.
dollars, and that, and it was approved by the policy committee
That
this
sounds
afternoon.
great. That sounds great.
So-
Good.
But you know, depending on what option we do with that Porter side, if it's a couple benches, it's probably just as easy to not mess with the project or any other project. Just go get those benches
Yeah.
and put them in. So we'll see what we can do out there, because it is right there in the sun.
Yeah,
People are waiting. I know that.
yeah, it's popular. It seems to be I'm not sure which bus that
Well,
one stops there, but.
And I will say, this past week we were doing a pothole repair in the east side of the bays, and a couple of our routes had to use that Porter Bay. So that's probably, you saw more activity this week as well over there.
Speaking of that, we've talked about that before too, Comanche in front of the transit center.
Yes.
That whole stretch was completely reconstructed just a few years ago, but it's got some pretty large craters in it now from the buses
Yeah, I sent,
Right in front of
We,
the,
we continue to, we're working on that area. Obviously, that street probably wasn't initially constructed to handle, especially the new electric buses, which actually do have more weight.
or heavier.
So what we've seen and what we think is happening is it's kind of the stop and turn movement that's
Yeah.
happening right there. We are watching that and we're trying to find ways to get that repaired and be able to take care of that. But our street maintenance is on it and watching it, so we're staying abreast of that.
Sounds good. All right. Any other further transit-related?
Sounds like they're ahead of
Any
everything.
of you all? Okay.
appreciate it. Once we hear from you, we'll see you guys in 2 months at the next committee meeting. So.
Enjoy
Okay,
your
thank
July.
you, Taylor. Appreciate it. All right, our second item on the agenda is capital projects update and discussion. And we have Scott here with Public Works.
Council members, I'm sorry if it's okay with you, my back is acting up, and if I can stay standing, I will be more comfortable.
Please do.
So that's
Figured
why
that-
I've been kind of stepping in and out. I'm not being awkward, it's just awkward.
I figured there was a reason.
Yeah, so every time I sit down, it kind of starts to tweak, and I'm like, I don't like this. So just to kind of give you guys a brief update, and then we can go into questions. The projects we have ongoing right now, of course, Porter Streetscape, we've kind of discussed. They're actually saying that they are out of time, and any future work, they'll begin to accrue liquidated damages. This will be the first time on an ODOT project in my time here that we're actually going to apply liquidated damages.
Wow.
So that's a big step.
Yeah.
But some of the reason for the extension was they thought they were going to be able to come in and do the whole project in one run through and be able to tear up all the street at one time, and we went, no, you're not. So that's the reason for a lot of the delays and the extension on the time. So when the time is calculated, ODOT does that and says it's a 280-day project or whatever. They don't always communicate with us, so we don't always get our viewpoint put in there. So this is one that kind of got us a little bit, but it's going to be okay. We'll be fine. We got the extra funding. And that may be why we've got this extra funding. I really don't know. But that project's going along well. We're down at the point to finish up the landscape and irrigation. They're trying to get electric out there to get meters to the irrigation and all the items that we need out there. We're still waiting on the construction of the decorative fences, like up at Robinson and some of the other locations where you can see the low wall.
Yeah.
And then the larger monuments that will say, you know, Porter Corridor or Robinson or this. So we're really down to just the aesthetics on that. Overall, it's gone pretty well. We did have a little oddity that a pothole showed up. I just lost the cross street that it was on. But we wound up, we went in there, we dug it out. It was something pretty minor, but we were seeing some washout. We did a repair, got it backed up and out, so we had to close a lane on one of the side streets for like 2 days. But we got that taken care of.
So before this project started, I mean, our staff, your staff felt comfortable that Porter was not a street that needed to be reconstructed? That, because I know there, especially at Eufaula and Porter, that one pot, now it's cement, so I think it'll be fine, but before that one pothole in front of Highland just kept,
Yeah.
every few months and it turned into a massive.
And so, you know, during construction, that popped up again. They went in there, they did some more substantial repairs in that area to take care of that. But in looking at it, yeah, it was just decided that didn't warrant a full reconstruction at that time. You know, again, that was 2018, 2019, and we were looking at that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we think that that road with the mill and overlay is going to be able to last us and we'll be able to move forward with that project.
Councilor Grant?
I was just curious about the planters, just because I've seen people posting how they're kind of being used as trash
I
cans.
watched someone put a big trash bag in it yesterday.
So our parks will
Driving.
be taking over the maintenance of those once the project's complete. They will be putting some,
It was a business. too.
I don't know, flowers, foliage, I don't know what they're gonna
That's
put in
what I
there.
was gonna ask.
Yeah.
Are they doing like native plants? I know it will be a irrigated system. and
They're
whatnot.
irrigated, which is the great thing about them, because they are gonna take a lot of heat, but they are irrigated. The original discussion was they may do kind of fall and a spring planting to kind of keep it fresh. But they're gonna try to do something, it's gonna give us a little bit of color, a little bit of character. Something's gonna break up the concrete jungle that we have down there, which was the purpose of putting those in the first place.
And I was gonna say, do you think like August or September is when we'll see plants in them?
They should be working through that now. They may just be, because they're still completing the landscape installation throughout the entire project. So they'll be putting in plants as part of the construction, and then Parks will be doing what they need to from that point forward. But we just haven't seen the completion of that. And I'm not 100% sure if they've turned on the irrigation to those yet or not, but that's what they've been working on, is getting all the electrical hooked up to it. And at that point, then they may be waiting, so they have to go out there and hand water those every day. But yeah, it'll be, that project is, we're just waiting for the finishing touches. So I would say here in the very near future, you're gonna see plants in those, and I think it's really gonna kind of bring it a little more to life. And I think then it'll make sense to the public who are in there going, why do they have these metal boxes sitting out here on the project?
Yeah.
You know, they don't make sense right now, but I think once they see that and see how it breaks it up and gives a little bit of character to the corridor, I hope that people will like them and accept them more than they do today.
See the full vision.
Yeah, it's hard. It's just, sometimes I have trouble with people. I have to explain to them we're in the middle of a project. When we get to the end, then we can talk about some of your concerns, because sometimes it's hard to see what the goal and the implementation is of the landscape architects and the design engineers.
You're not eating a half-baked cake.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
So, I don't know, a month and a half ago or so, the two of the new signs in front of Friendly Market, one got hit by a Highland truck and knocked over. The other one got hit by just a truck that was trying to parallel park in there. And someone stopped by and I was talking to him about it, and he said they would just be left where they were at until like the final walkthrough. So they're still like laying on the sidewalk and waiting to, I guess he said ODOT would see that that's where they are and do something about it, but it has been over a month.
We are
Sure.
tracking those.
Okay.
I apologize. I thought that there had been discussions to repair. Unfortunately, this is one of those times when having ODOT in the middle between us and the contractor. This is where I
Yeah.
wish that we had the contractor, or we could just go, no, you're going to fix it.
Right.
We will follow up on that, and we'll make sure that's addressed. It is something that we're aware of. I know that Paul went out and looked at it, Paul
yes,
DeAndre,
yes, yes.
who's the project manager, and he came back, reported it to us, we knew about it, and he was on it actively. I'm surprised that hasn't been handled. We'll follow up on that and get with our construction engineering firm that's out there and say, no. And he was talking about relocating at least one, if not both of
Yeah,
them.
I kind of saw it
And-
coming. I was surprised it didn't happen faster, and then
Yeah.
they both happened within an hour or so of each other on the same day. So,
Yeah.
Gosh.
But you're telling me something that I've heard about, so that's at least good news. At least we were aware of it on this one, so.
And then the new big street light that's in front of the building, it's actually staying on all day and night. So all the rest of them are coming on at night with the timer or whatever sensor, but this one I've noticed is staying on. So I don't know.
Like that or something.
Little things like that with when you're trying to finish up the project.
Yeah,
but
and
just so you know.
yeah, during a final walkthrough, we'll note that, but during a final walkthrough, hopefully somebody's gonna look up and go, why is the light on in the middle of the day?
So you anticipate Porter could probably be completely wrapped up in the next 6 months, maybe?
Oh, no, it should
3
be.
months, 2 months?
If it's 6 weeks, I'm gonna be upset.
Okay,
I mean, we're down to that kind of a level. We're really, like I said, it's aesthetics and finishing that out. I could see, right now, we're at the mercy of when they deliver the custom-made fence panels and the monuments.
Yeah.
And as soon as we get those, but I know that the landscaper is being a little slow. I guess they drive to Kingfisher to pick up the plant materials, bring them here, plant a few, and then
Drive back.
call it a day.
Okay.
So, and that's where the liquidated damage is gonna come in and help us, because now we're saying, that's on you, it's
Yeah.
not on us, so.
That's what I was about to ask. Were the LDs, are they by the day or by the month, and who's imposing them? Is that ODOT or the contractor?
It's ODOT.
Okay.
Yeah, so ODOT has hired Atkins to be the construction manager on that project.
Okay.
And we were in the meeting and they said, no, your drop dead date is the end of this month. Anything after that, that's on you. And if you either pay the liquidated damages, or you can start passing that down to your
Absolutely.
subcontractors. So it's actually being administered by them.
Okay. So yeah, we have every motivation to finish it as quickly as
Yeah,
possible.
let's get at it.
Yeah,
Let's-
that's right. I'm with you.
let's quit
Okay.
paying money.
No, that's good to know. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, I don't think I should.
One question related to Porter, not necessarily with this project, but if we were interested as a council in lowering the speed limit from Alameda to Robinson to 25, what process would that go through?
So it's not a decision just made that we're going to change the speed limit. That's done by doing a speed study through the corridor and then it's done by, you're looking at the 80 percentile of what people are traveling, and then you base it off of that. So it would actually take a study, which we can do in-house. Sometimes those studies come back and say the speed limit needs to go up instead of down.
What if we want it to be slower? Because now that the sidewalk is hugging the street, and now that there is no street parking on most of it, I've definitely noticed that cars are driving faster than they were. There's no obstruction anymore for them to worry about. And so now that, and because of the planters, there's we've talked about it, some of the sections, it's like the person is having to hug the curb, and like close enough where a wide truck mirror could hit you in the back of the head if you're walking.
It's not gonna take out the light.
And so the only remedy I can think of is eventual road diet or currently, if it's 4 lanes, can we slow the speed down?
But and remember, we can post it whatever we want.
Sure.
That's
yes.
not going to affect most of the traveling public.
Right.
They're going to drive the speed they want to drive and they feel safe at.
Maybe they'll drive
with
35
an
instead of
accepted risk
40.
factor.
Well, and
So-
the enforcement possibility of law enforcement.
But yeah, so without enforcement, those signs are just, as David says, the recommendations.
I understand, but it may
So-
make you think if it says 25, you may drive 35 instead of 40.
I'm with you.
But if it's 30, you might drive 40.
But we typically have not just said we want to lower speed limit. We're just going to lower it. We've done it through a speed study to make sure that it actually meets what traffic demand
I would like
is.
for Porter to us to look at it being the same speed limit as Main Street and Gray Street.
Yeah.
It has similar settings to me, and now that pedestrians are going to be walking right there next to it, they already were before, but now the sidewalk is actually out there. It's something I'd like for us to,
We
I'd
can-
like to request for sure.
We can put, so we don't like to do any of our traffic studies during the summer because we don't have full traffic flow, so it's really not indicative of what our actual flows are. So at this point, we've basically suspended our traffic studies until we get into the fall, when we have both NPS and OU in service.
Makes sense.
So we can certainly look at that. We kind of have a list right now of them that we need to catch up on, but we can add that to the list. We can do a speed study through the corridor, take a look at it, and bring that back to a future CPT when we get that completed.
Is that something we could do in-house, or we have to hire a consultant to do that?
No, we do those in-house.
We'll do that in-house.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, we have the equipment and the people and we have all the knowledge to do those. That's absolutely an in-house item.
Okay. Any other questions about
No,
Porter?
I'd support that. I mean, I have same feelings, definitely. I mean, yeah.
And it's funny, as we're standing here, I get Daryl asking about the next project, James Garner, and when we're gonna get that opened up. That, again, we seem to wind up being at the mercy of deliverables on items more than we are on construction dates. So at this point, as you drive through there, the roundabout is basically completed. In fact, today, they were spreading, looked like they were spreading, I think it's decomposed granite that they're putting in there to get that ready. Of course, we had the delivery of the art piece, Revolutions, to still be put in there. And that's in the very near future. So that's going to be coming. But our goal is, once they've completed the work in that area, to open up northbound and southbound lanes through. So you got both lanes. So at least that's going to help some of it and maybe help people acclimate just a little bit more to the roundabout idea. The main thing that's stopping us, all the street work and sidewalk work is complete on James Garner. What we're lacking right now is some of all of the fence, the railing panels that go along the bridge on the pedestrian side. I don't want anybody to fall off. That would be really bad. But that is custom ordered to fit. And during the construction, we realized that they had a 40-inch railing on there. If I'm on my bicycle, I'm probably going over the top of that if I hit it wrong.
Gotta be 42 by code.
So it probably was 42. I'm sorry. You are correct. It was 3'6". I'm just
That's
an
probably
engineer.
not-
Right.
I'm just an engineer. Math doesn't work every day. So we called it out and we asked for it to be elevated to a 5 foot so that there is more safety in there. And so they had to get shop drawings. That's being constructed along with some of the fence panels are going to go along the bridge abutments. Once that's installed, along with the bridge aesthetics. We're also waiting on the bridge aesthetics, which is the James Garner Legacy Trail, James Garner's signature, and then the Norman, and my favorite thing, the Firebird
Yeah,
on the
the
top.
Firebird, I said.
I love the
Yeah, yeah,
Firebird. But we're waiting on all that, and we're also right now working with the electrical contractor. There's some discrepancy on what lighting to use to work with the controllers. So there's a lot of back and forth right now, but we're waiting on these other items anyways. So that's all we're lacking to open it. So I can't give a date on the full opening because we don't want to open it and then shut it back down. That doesn't make sense. So that's what we're waiting on for that. That
Maybe by
project is-
football season, right? Maybe.
Yes, we fully expect to be by football season, which would be great. Another way to be able to get right down into campus, maybe split the traffic between
Good way to
the different
get it out.
locations.
Councilmember Grant?
I was gonna ask about Gray Street, because I think that's August when that work starts.
The pre-work on that is right at the end of July, 1st of August, and then they will give us the date when they're supposed to start. My understanding is their start date is like August 5th, according to their contract. So we're just waiting for them to come in, and that's another project where ODOT actually is in charge. WSB, which is a firm that has offices all over, they have one here in Norman. They're doing the construction management on that one. We are in contact with them, and we're like, come on, we gotta go. So we're ready to go.
Work starts, Tiffany will send out a blast to let everybody know.
Oh, we
work
will do
starts.
press releases on that before we start. We'll also be having our inspector and maybe construction manager. We will be working with people through the corridor, talking to them. This is what's going to be coming up next. Here's where we're at. We'll also be reaching out to the downtowners, making sure they have all the information. But yeah, we definitely will be working ahead on that, making sure we get that set up. We want to keep everybody as informed as possible. We had good luck on the Main Street project on the west side where we did that. And we will be very visible on that project. I think that we were on Porter. This one maybe just a little bit more. But yeah, we'll get a heads up out there before we start it.
And I was gonna ask, does the work start at Gray and Porter or the other end? Like, where's it?
I don't think we have it specified where it starts. So partially that'll be up to them. We will not want them to tear up the whole
Corridor at
whole
once.
corridor at one time. That doesn't work well for anybody. So we'll work with them on that, on trying to keep it a little more constrained so we don't wind up with a lot of open areas.
Seems like coming from the opposite direction of Porter makes the most sense because it's
And-
against the traffic flow and everything.
And
Yeah.
to clarify for those watching, this is not a reconstruction of Gray Street.
No, it's really,
It's a
really what it
sidewalks
is,
and
it's
curbs
a,
and then repaving it.
well, it's a conversion to two-way is
Yeah,
what it is.
yeah.
That's actually what it was in the bond package. That's actually, it has grown. We have expanded the project, and now I would say we've turned it into more of a streetscape project. We're going to be doing limited work on the sidewalks. We're going to be adding some sidewalks in some areas where they're not there, repairing some things that aren't correct now, putting up the lights to where you have 4 stop. Right now you only have the 3. And then we will be doing a mill and overlay and restriping it. We've added in the intersections, the same decorative elements that we have on Main Street. So the red
Yep.
stamped and stained brick pattern, so that it makes downtown feel
Yep.
like one
Yeah.
area together. Probably the biggest change that people are going to notice is that, of course, at the railroad, we're putting in a center curved median, which we have to have for our quiet zone. And there's going to be some additional landscaping in that area. And then Gray Street will actually, Gray and James Garner will become a signalized intersection. And so right now, where you do the Y and it gets kind of, that is going to be a real intersection right there.
I love that.
So that's going to be a great addition for us.
And it
then-
times up with the crossing and it's able to sync with when the arms go down, that light turns red, that type of.
Well, we've gone through with BNSF Railroad, and there has been plans that have gone back and forth, and all the needs of BNSF have been incorporated into the plans. We also had them because when we do James Garner Phase 3, which goes from Acres to Duffy, Main Street will also become a signalized intersection. And so we actually did it to where both of those are coordinated, and we asked them to do both at one time because they're so close. Those two really need to be worked together too. So all of that's kind of incorporated into it. But yeah, we are looking at the crossing as kind of one of the key components of that project.
I'll just ask, how many ADA spots got added with the two-way conversion? I know there wasn't any, and then a constituent brought it up, and then,
We would add, so there's requirements that in each parking area, which typically winds up breaking down into a block, you have to have a certain number based upon how many, and I cannot tell you off the top of my head, and I apologize, I did not bring plans with me today. I could get that number for you and we can send that. But yes, we are complying with ProAg and all ADA requirements. So whatever the required number is what we're putting in. It'll look very similar to Main Street.
I think it's 1 per 20, if I remember right.
It's
Well, I
one
was
for
just gonna
20,
say-
but then because
And then, yeah, exactly.
there's weird
yeah.
caveats in there that you have to account for.
Yeah.
But we've accounted for that, and we will meet or exceed ADA requirements and
I was
provide.
just gonna say, I remember emailing Mr. O'Leary before, and he was like, "Oh, I think we at least have one." And then he went out there and was like, "Oh, we have none." So the quick answer is 100% more. But
Infinitely more, yeah.
I like
But no, that is addressed in this plan.
And we talked about it before too, the sidewalks are, some panels may remain, but any of them that are in, we wanted it to match and look good, not be like a patchwork of, there's an old one that's got a crack through it, and then there's a new one on both sides
Yeah,
of it.
and you gotta remember that we did have the water line project that came through
Yes.
a year ago, 18 months ago. And we were working with them. If they were doing stuff in the sidewalk, we were working with them to get repairs made at that time. So we kind of were able to get a little ahead of this project. We're having a great working relationship with the utilities group. They come to us and say, hey, we got a water line, and we'll work back and forth and try to coordinate as much as we can.
Okay, Councilman Peter.
Just on the signalized intersections of the train tracks, did I hear you say that the Main Street one was included in the Gray Street, or just the coordination?
No, the coordination.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually gonna be included in the
Okay.
James Garner project for the actual signalization
I
itself.
gotcha. I gotcha.
But the coordination of both of them was included in the submittal to BNSF
Perfect.
for the railroad.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, and
People
I,
putting in all the infrastructure so it can be.
Yeah,
Because what I understand, that's the big cost on the Main Street conversion, right? Is that intersection right
Yeah.
there? Okay.
yes, that's like half, it was like half.
Yeah, so I mean, I think getting that box checked is just
Yeah.
all the easier for us to go down the road, no pun intended.
And definitely want to make sure, like, if it comes down to it with Gray Street, I mean, there's lots of property, there is lots of activity, there'll be even more when this project's done, so I want to make sure there's no corner cut because of budget, especially for getting more money for these ACOG projects. So I want to make sure that, it's not a matter from your end if there's a budget or not. Let us know, because I'd be interested in making sure that if we need to
Okay, and,
approve more for it, I want to make sure it's done really well
and
before.
more good news. I love giving you good news, because it seems like I don't do that as often as I'd like to. We did get $2.7 million towards Gray Street, which basically, if you remember, this wasn't one that was supposed to be federally funded. We got about 50%, and now we're getting another 2.7. It gets closer to making this project whole. So our money from the bond is decreasing on this project, and it's getting really close to being, for the construction anyways, and we still have all of our other, right-of-way utilities
Right.
and design. So, this is one where if we come up with something that needs to be changed during construction, we could probably make some changes. Of course, we're real mindful of making sure that with the costs we've seen and the cost increases in construction, that we're trying to save every penny we can so that we have more money left for future projects. And then the other project that we got funding for, we got $2.7 million towards Jenkins, which Jenkins, so you can only get 7.5 million, and that was,
Got that?
well, yeah, and we got the 7.5, but we were matching well above that, and they added $2.7 million to that project. So that's gonna help the Jenkins project, which is expected to go out to bid in September with ODOT.
Good news, I like it.
The sidewalks
Yeah.
on Gray stamped and everything, they'll be decorative, not just going to be a slab of concrete, right? We talked about that before, I think.
I would have to go back and look at the plans. I
If
just,
it's a matter of that too, I want to make sure that it,
and again, I think some of the problem we have
and
is
all
there's
that.
so much of it that was remaining, and then there were sections that weren't along the curb line, and we tried to be pretty consistent through the corridor. I don't remember exactly, I'd have to go back and look at the plans.
Councilor Nash,
If we're done with the Porter.
whichever
discussion.
project you want to talk about, yeah.
All right, now, I guess it's bonded at this point, but the 60th Bridge,
That's
it's
the next, I was
design work.
gonna bring that one up, yes,
Okay,
sir.
60th Bridge, and then you can kind of go over the timeline for that, and then also the other bridges. I know we've just got the first 16 million in the bond package, so I think there's probably some others that are
Yes, sir.
at least going to go into the design phase.
Yes, sir. So the 60th Street Bridge, you'll be seeing that for award of contract for construction on July 9th. We're ready to get that one rolling. We're happy about that one. So that will be going, and once we do that, It's part of the reason that we've been in a delay is we've been working with adjacent property owners to acquire the right-of-way and easements necessary to do the construction of the bridge. I know there's a lot of confusion about what we're building, so just to kind of help, well, what we're doing is the bridge is wider than the existing bridge. The existing bridge does not meet our current codes. So like anything, when we construct it, we bring it to current codes. It is 2 lanes, one each way, but there's shoulder that meets the design in our comprehensive transportation plan for that roadway type. So yes, it's going to be a wider bridge, but the reason isn't for it to increase capacity, is to give a place for safety and for to meet the current design requirements. So that's all we're doing there. As part of the project, what we need to do next, so we expect by the end of next week that we will have access to all properties that will be resolved. There could be future issues, but as far as our ability to have access, that should be resolved next week. So we're planning on having we're going to give OEC or ONG. I think it's OEC. We're going to give them notice to proceed. They need to relocate a little bit so that we can construct the new bridge. And then also there's a small section of the water line that would be under the bridge. There's an existing water line there that's a collection water line for the wells that are out there. We're just moving it over out of the footprint of the bridge because you don't want to put a bridge on top of a water line. It's just bad planning for everybody. So we'll do that, and then we'll be having our pre-work meeting as quickly as we can. I don't remember the exact dates I gave you. I'm popping them in my head here. I believe we said the week of the 17th, and they'd probably begin right there after the first of the month on the construction. So we're kind of going to be out there working alongside OEC, getting this started, get it moving and doing what we can. We're looking at probably March for completion. That gives us a little bit of float in there for some weather days. Just want to be realistic. We're going to get rain in the middle of this project, and we're working in a creek. So we're going to have some days that we can't work. So I'm giving us a little bit of float there. If we get an extreme amount of rain, it may extend a little bit further. But we're excited. That project's going to get rolling. The money's there. The design's complete, obviously, as we already got out to bid on it. Any other, did I leave anything out on that?
No, I think that's good on the 60th bridge.
Okay. And so we also went out to bid on the bridge. It's funny, nobody realizes it, but Classen and Lindsay is a bridge, and it goes catty corner to that entire intersection. We put that one out there, and we did not get numbers that were conducive to us awarding. They were very high. So what we're planning on doing, and so if you remember in the bridge bond, we have the replacement and the major repairs. And so that is a major repair. And so what we're going to do is we're going to combine that with the Main Street Bridge over Merkle Creek. So, and if you remember just a couple of years ago, that one we had major pop-outs. We did a lot of repair work on the bridge deck, but now I need to work on the typical things, a little bit of repair on the abutments and other items. So we're going to combine those two to make it a little bit larger package, and hope that larger package will get us some better bid numbers. So that will be going out. We're working on the design documents for Main Street right now. The Lindsay Street Bridge is already completed, and so that's underway too. We're also well underway on the Porter Street Bridge over the Little River. And that one is going to be an incredible project. That if you're not aware, that floods for about a quarter mile, about 2 feet deep.
You have to raise it way up.
Yeah, so we're basically going to construct a bridge that's like 1,500 foot long to go across all that. Because if we don't, if we burned it up, we would create a restriction that would cause the water to flood higher on the backside. So this is what we're having to do to get that water to flow and stay the way it is and accommodate it. But that's well under construction. We'll probably be starting to work with some landowners in that area in the very near future. So there's a lot of items that we need to incorporate there. And then we're also starting to look at the next projects on the bid list. Is Porter year 2 or 3? I'm trying to remember. But we're trying to stay out. What we're trying to do is get to the point to where whatever the next fiscal year is, it's ready to where we can try to go out to bid in June of the previous year to where we award it in July and we're working on the bridge. We don't like being behind, so we're going to do everything we can to get ahead and be able to be working whatever bridge we said we're going to do in that fiscal year. We're working on it at the beginning of that fiscal year. And the whole bridge list, there's 20 of them on there, so we'll be working forward on those.
Okay. Are there any other bridges that already had the design work done? Because I wasn't aware that we had the design work done for Class and Lindsay. I was with the 60th bridge, but it'd be nice to know which ones have the design work done, so we kind of think that one's probably imminent, and it's
Yeah,
it's gonna
and
be a
those are the
start.
ones that we have completed at this time. And like I said, we're working on the Main Street now, and we'll be looking at each year. I'd have to go down and look at the list, but yeah, we're at the point that we'd be going out. We did, if you remember, we did the pool idea again, where we got 4 or 5 engineering firms. And so we can select them because they've been through a selection process. It's the same way that we handled the 2019 bond, the 2012 bond. It's really worked well for us. It allows us to condense the selection process. We still come to council. We say they were selected by this process to show that we met process and we did it properly. And then we come to you and we give you who we awarded those bridges to. And so like I said, there's 5 different consultants and we'll rotate through them. And if one underperforms, they just won't be more bridges. That's the other nice thing about it. If somebody underperforms, we can just stop utilizing them because it's really at the discretion to award. And we can look at that list and I will get you an answer as to where we are with the award of the next groups and which ones they are. I can send it out to all the committee members.
Okay. How long is it going to take to do the Porter Bridge? That's nice to know the design work. I think you said the design works.
It's underway.
Okay.
It's underway. It's a very substantial structure with a lot of
Yeah.
work to be done. I would say that bridge is going to take a year. And to do that, we'll have to close Porter. There's really no way to
Yeah.
detour. We have a small bridge there today. We don't really want to extend a wider bridge to, so we'll that will probably have to be a closure. In fact, I was talking to the design engineer this week about some design issues at the south end of that bridge, where it ties back into the existing roadways.
All right. I think it's all questions I have.
Okay. You mentioned James Garner 3 briefly. The timeline on when that one might, next year or two? What?
No, the next 6 months or so.
Okay.
Excellent.
In fact, what we really are, we want that to be under construction with Gray Street. Let's
Yeah.
let's get it over with.
No, I agree.
Let's just rip the Band-Aid off.
Kind of what I've been saying the whole time. Just do it all
The
at
other
once.
thing is, because of the intersection there, James Garner and Gray, if one was way ahead of the other, there'd be a lot of temporary work that had to be done that would increase cost to whichever project, and then the other project had to take that out. So we want to get them coordinated before we can do that work once and be done in that area. So we're basically, plans are at 95%. We're like down to the final corrections. They're working on those. We do have a little bit of relocation with some of the utilities that still needs to be done, but they're working on that. That's another project that utilities reached out to us and knew we were doing the project. So we're going to include the water line rebuild as part of the project. They're putting in for their part of that. We're doing the same thing on Jenkins.
Yeah.
So a lot of good coordination with them on how we're doing projects and be able to minimize downtime or them coming in and tearing up a new road or us going in and working on top of their new water line, either way. So a lot of work trying to make sure that we're doing what's best. And also there's a little bit of cost savings to both projects to do it at the same time.
Yeah.
If they don't have to come in and repair the roadway where they're fixing it, it's obviously a cost savings for utilities.
Yeah, that is ideal.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about Project 180 in Oklahoma City and how they, converted all their one-way streets to two-way. And they did them all at the same time, which was a real burden on property owners there. But I think everybody, if you asked them today, they would not have preferred it to go, one street at a time. Just
Yeah.
knock it all out and
Oh, and
more paying for less time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and on Lindsay Street, we asked the property owners,
Yeah.
do you want to finish the bridge on I-35?
Right.
Open it and then do Lindsay Street, or do you want to just get it all over with? They said do it at the same time.
Hey, you want 1 2-year project, or you want 2
Yeah.
projects that last
Two-
4 years, 5
yeah.
years?
Right.
Yeah, and
It's,
I know there's a lot of negatives.
Yeah,
but
there
it worked
is.
out better doing it together
There is.
because, there's a lot of debate as to was the traffic issues because the interstate
Yeah.
was connection was closed off, or is it because the road was under construction? I'm sure it was a combination of all.
factors.
For sure.
So,
Okay.
Just to give you Jenkins, we're expecting to go out to bid with ODOT in September. So we would expect that project to be beginning probably right after the first of the year.
Okay.
We're coordinating, we're gonna start after this football season. It will be torn up next football season.
Yeah.
That's probably a little over a year project. That's a pretty major project. And of course, we're gonna be putting the new roundabout in where Constitution and Imhoff will bring those together with S-curves. And it's gonna be right there in front of this new softball, Love's Field. So it's gonna be great. It's gonna be really nice. It's gonna give an opportunity, kind of a nice gateway feature. Welcome to Norman, welcome to the university, all right there in one piece. So that's the other project that we have coming up in the near future.
What I think of as our athletic sports complex district. We were adding up, there's over a dozen athletic team sports and facilities that are in the South Campus area
Yeah.
already.
Oh,
currently.
yeah. And that's, people forget rowing's down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Swim complex?
Soccer,
Swim,
golf,
baseball,
rugby, and tennis.
softball, yeah.
Will there be a public art piece in that roundabout? I forget.
We do not, so the reason that there's one on this one is because that was Norman Ford, and there was already a set aside of 1% for
Gotcha.
art with Norman Ford, and so we came back to you as council and asked if we could take some funding to do that, because it wasn't initially one of the 1% for art projects, and council said, yes, we would love to have an art piece there. So at this point, we don't have that, but if that's something that would be available to be added in the future, if that was the,
Maybe we could calculate 1% of that project budget and then make that some sort of public art
I would definitely,
proposal project.
I would definitely support it. There's gonna be a lot of eyes on that area.
Yeah.
And,
Doesn't have to come from the project. I'm just saying whatever the 1% of that project costs, and then we find the money.
so the art piece that we're putting in on James Garner and Flood, the total budget for that was $200,000, and they spent about 20,000-ish on the getting it all set up and getting everything ready, and then the other 180,000 is for the art piece. And that's a substantial art piece. I know you guys have seen it, but it's 20 foot tall. It's huge. I love it. It's cool. So that's kind of the cost you're looking at for a significant art piece like that. That's a little more than 1% of the Jenkins project right now.
Okay. And the only question I had about the Jenkins project was something we briefly have talked about before, but really, there's currently just a small gap, sort of, where there's not a sidewalk from Constitution down to Congress Avenue. And when the new roundabout and everything's put in, there would only be a gap between Chesapeake and Congress. And that's a gap, that'd be the only gap missing from Highway 9 all the way to the whole length of Legacy Trail. So I had asked if the sidewalk extension as part of this project would go all the way down to Congress.
It does not.
Wasn't sure at the time, so.
It does not, and part of
I
the
know it's
reason.
OU property too.
Well, it's OU property for number one, but the right of way is ours. But part of the problem that came by the time that happened, we'd already set the boundaries of the project for the NEPA,
Okay.
the environmental study. And if we would have extended that, we would have gone back to the beginning, we'd have extended our footprint. And the NEPA on this one has taken already like 13, 14 months. We're this close to the finish on it, and we could not, and part of the reason for that is because we have the 4F Park at Reeves. And then we also, there's state property, university property. We had the state archaeologist, I can normally say that word. He had some concerns over the buildings that had been removed along Constitution. And if there was some impact there to what had been there, they determined there wasn't. So we've had a lot of effort and work that's gone into that NEPA, but it's basically at ODOT the final signature, which is what's allowing us to go out to bid in September, along with getting the plans complete. We kind of put a slowdown while we were negotiating with OU for land and then for utility relocation and the NEPA. In the end, we would have been at the same place no matter what happened, because NEPA has been the one that's really been the driver on where we could be with the project.
So maybe for the next budget that comes up, a project I might put in for Ward 7 is a separate project just for sidewalk from Chesapeake to Congress.
Yeah.
And that would complete the whole network.
And I do know, so on that side of the roadway, that's where we're putting the 10-foot legacy trail. So that would,
And it's 10 foot on both ends already, yeah.
yeah. So, been kind of hoping that maybe I know that university at one time was looking at doing that because I had some discussions with a consultant that was working on it, but that trail has gone cold. Pun intended, by the way.
Yeah, I would like to find out what it would cost to do that.
Yeah.
That Congress to Chesapeake, just that one block, so.
Okay.
And then that would complete, with the Jenkins project, would complete the Legacy Trail all the way to Highway 9, so. That was the only question I had about that one.
And another project that is of interest is the Flood Street multimodal path from Robinson to
Yes.
Kemsa is getting ready to kick off. Pre-work for that was today. That was awarded through ODOT. So we're going to be seeing some construction going on out there. It's going to be a fairly quick construction
People have
process.
asked why the sidewalk doesn't go to the roundabout, and I've told them, well, because there's going to be a new one on the other side of the street that goes all the way north to.
Yeah.
So you
you'll
won't
be able
even
to come down.
interact with the roundabout, really.
Yeah. And, you know, to be able to go down to that signalized intersection for pedestrians and cyclists is a better option than the roundabout. And it ties in those two, so you don't have two separate crossings. And of course, that does loop up, it ties in, and now I ride my, I ride my bike because I'm still suffering from that one, right? But that trail, instead of crossing there at Flood and Robinson,
Yeah.
now you're just gonna have to cross one time, tie in and be gone. It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the big benefits, is not having to cross the 7 lanes of Robinson at flood. So we're cutting the distance by in half.
Yeah.
That people now have to cross
It's gonna
traffic.
be a good option for
Agreed.
alternate forms of transportation other than vehicles.
And you were saying that one could get off, or could get underway by the end of the year or next year?
They estimated construction would start mid to late July
Oh,
Wow.
okay.
this year.
And it'll be done by the end of the year.
Sometime October.
Awesome.
Okay. And then.
And that will actually go all the way up to Tecumseh, and it will actually go over to 24th and tie in there. So now what you do is all that development to happen on 24th, and now we've got a huge connection all the way around the
And then we
the
just
airport.
need ODOT to replace the interchange at Tecumseh and I-35, and
That-
then we'll have a complete,
I'd love to see that one.
yeah, we'll have a complete all the way
Yeah.
across. I don't know if you wanted to ask about the status of 36th Avenue Northwest or not, but.
Oh, we have to?
What's the status
Just
of
to
36th Avenue Northwest?
I know last time we were looking at doing just the first mile and
Right.
don't know what's gonna happen.
So
to
we
Turnpike,
submitted that again. We did not get funded for it. So we're really no further along. We have made a request to Congressman Cole for some money to do the intersection at Franklin. And that was a very calculated decision. We didn't feel that we could do the funding for the full mile or the full distance, but that at least gives us, that intersection is one of the major costs. And then we can start looking at what can we do to make the connections between the intersections. On the North Mile, we're still waiting on OTA to know what's happening there. It'd be silly for us to go build that for them to rip it out behind us.
Absolutely.
So we're waiting on that. We do have a meeting this week to meet with the city of Moore to talk about the connection from Indian Hills to 34th and Moore. So we're not sure exactly what that discussion is yet, but we're gonna have that discussion with them. If you guys remember, not this year, but the year before, we applied for a raise grant. So the year before that, we applied for a raise grant, we didn't get it. And then that year, we applied with Moore to go from 34th all the way down to Tecumseh, thinking maybe if we showed cooperation between communities, that would be the magic ticket, and it wasn't. So, it's the same thing. It's the funding issue. We still have funding available, although the Hawk system that you
Yeah.
requested at Ruby Grant, we have those plans back. They're under review in-house. So we hope to be moving forward with that in the near future. So at least that Hawk system will be in place.
Excellent.
I think that's going to be an interesting option for some other projects
I
that we'll
agree.
probably be bringing back in the future because we maybe will do some interesting things. So Hawk system is a stop control for pedestrians. It's 3 lights, it flashes yellow, and then it flashes red, and it goes red, and then it releases them. So it's actually a stop control. You just hope that people in cars can see colors and realize what they mean. But there's signage that explains its usage. So we're looking at that maybe in some ways in some other projects where we can do some things with crossings to reduce some sidewalks and tricky areas to maybe utilize existing paths and some other items.
That's
So
great. great.
We have at least had some success on that.
I love that. I love that. We
But
could be-
that, the cost to construct that and design it is coming from the construction. But we've also asked them to design it in a way, and we think right now that they've done it, we asked them to design it in such a way that it would remain after the construction of the project.
Perfect.
Because we'd already requested to be included in the project. So we're just kind of paying forward on that portion of the project.
Oh, that makes sense. That's smart.
Yeah.
When we submitted to ACOG this most recent round, was that before or after we had heard there was extra money coming in?
It was before.
Okay, so do you think that that project might have been eligible for some of the 7.5 or whatever we got?
So the money that we just got, what they wanted, they had to have it expended or accounted for by October. So what they were looking for were projects that were under construction, bid,
Yeah.
or about to be bid.
With a deficit?
And then what they did is they looked at, so most of those projects are 80-20 splits. Well, all three of those projects, we overmatched up to 50% to get the money that we could.
Yeah.
And so what they did is they looked at projects that overmatched, and because we had overmatched on those projects, we got the money.
Okay.
So, yay for us.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we had to overmatch.
Right.
But, so it's really helped us in a lot of ways, but that was, I thought, a very unique way for them to award that money.
That's good to know.
And my understanding was at the meeting was first announced, Midwest City went, well, we got projects, and they explained that, and Midwest City went, that's pretty fair.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and there were some other communities that got some funding too, but of the 10 million, we got 63% of it. I think that's a
think
pretty
that's-
good, that's a pretty good day.
Again,
But
goes.
ACOG is a little bit optimistic that that type of funding could be available in future years as well.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. Well, that's good to know. I mean,
Yeah.
so hopefully, I
You
mean,
just gotta have projects that are hemorrhaging. That's all we need.
a bad spot to be in, but a good tool to bail us out with. Yeah.
So it's funny because Sean O'Leary texted me and said, hey, congratulations on extra money. I said, yeah, we were fortunate to be unfortunate. And he sent back pretty, laughing emoji.
And you're saying that 6 million could only be used for existing bond projects?
So that money is given to those projects.
Oh, okay.
And it has to be expended on those projects, Jenkins, Gray Street, and Porter
You
Street.
got some of us thinking about
But-
funding to do two-way Main Street,
Yeah.
but
No,
not eligible for that.
Yeah, that money is dedicated to those projects. But what that's gonna do is free up money to be able to look at where's Constitution,
That's
Cedar
it.
Lane, 36 South.
36,
We'll be able to take that accumulated savings and start being able to come to you with options to maybe start working down our list
Yeah.
Okay.
to be able to get another project.
If that causes those projects to come in under budget, do we have to give money back or anything?
Doesn't seem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
don't
Good. So
think so.
savings could be used once the bond program is wrapped up and closed.
Right, so.
Then savings could
So
be.
I'm just gonna throw out numbers, don't quote me on these. So on Gray Street, we had $5.3 million. This money gets us up to $5.2 million.
Right. Right.
So all that does is we'll take all that money and all we have in it is what we have already put in to get to that number. But then that money that would have been expended on that bond project is still in the balance of the bond project. Even though it's in that project, we can ask it to go back to bond balance, and then we can come to council, and that's where it be reappropriated to a different project
Excellent. Perfect.
within the bond program.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, and that's our
To answer your
plan.
question specifically, if there is a savings in the project, they would refund some of the portion that we pay.
Ah, okay. Interesting. Okay. Nice.
Thank you, David.
The only other, well, I have two related, traffic-related issue. University North Park, entertainment district aside, probably the biggest complaint I hear from that area currently is traffic, right? And then I've heard it mentioned recently that we have a project, I mean, I knew about flood in Tecumseh, 24th in Tecumseh, and then the separate I-35 interchange and all that. Do we currently have a funded project to redo flood, or Tecumseh and 24th and flood and 24th?
That is unfunded.
Unfunded.
Yes.
So is it designed, is it?
So what we've done is we've done preliminary designs, and in fact, I brought those forward in the past, and we shared those. I'd be happy to bring that back again with what the recommendation was. And today, the recommendation may be different, because traffic patterns have changed. That was probably 2 or 3 years ago. So traffic patterns today may be very different than what they were projecting then. But basically, it was adding some extra lanes, east and west, with some dedicated turn lanes, and then going to some dual turn lanes that flood, so you get more flow through. It was a very well thought out. Is it perfect? Probably not, but it was definitely going to be a large improvement. We have looked at some different grant funding opportunities for that, but unfortunately, once we got into the details of the grants, it was always just outside. Like one of them had to be tied to a multimodal, and I was trying to say it's right next to the airport, and they told me that that's not good enough. I said,
station,
but
too.
Cisco's right there, and Cisco is a trucking. No, that's not good
We're
enough.
about to have a train. maybe
Two-modal.
We're planning to have a train station.
And that may be, the other thing that I try to do is on one of them, I extended the project all the way to the interchange and made a turn lane at the interchange, so it was linking to the interstate, and that wasn't good enough. So we've tried several things, and we will continue to try looking for funding for that.
Well, that was a comment I heard in the planning commission regarding the entertainment district proposal. Someone seemed to be under the impression that we had a funded project to address traffic in the UNP area, and I was thinking, I don't think we do.
I would love to give you an affirmative answer on that, but
And I think it was
just
a
can't.
pretty expensive project.
That's a
both of
very
them.
large project.
Not only just flood into Tecumseh, but also 24th and
Yeah, and we have it lumped in because we're so close together.
One.
You can't do one,
Right.
or it's a both.
Right.
They have to go together.
Right.
We're also looking at some other options that may be able to help with some flow through there. As part of the UNP, they did look at those intersections as part of their traffic study. We're looking at their recommendations right now. So if there's something we can do interim that we can find some funding for, we may be willing to do some small incremental changes that may get us a 15, 25%, better
Yeah.
flow in some areas and reduce some of the wait times. But that's being evaluated. David has started looking at that already. So we're
Okay.
constantly looking at that area. We're also, we're so ready for a TMC, we can't stand it. We're ready for our TMC, but we're looking at maybe having a consultant help us look at that area again and see if there's some things we can do with some traffic signal timings. But I drive home that way. I promise I want to get it fixed as bad as anybody. But so we keep looking at that and keep working on that area. That's an area that we really concentrate
that's
on.
definitely, like I said, one of the, maybe the biggest concern I hear from people up there is that it's not even half developed. If you, looking at Robinson all the way to Tecumseh, that whole area is not half developed, so, and it has traffic problems now, so and there's only so much you can do unless we do the tunnel under the runway thing, I think, in the future for Rock Creek Road, but yeah.
But what's there, a lot of was accounting for future growth. And so it's just, I think that we're getting so many different traffic streams coming through there
Yeah,
now.
absolutely.
I'm shocked at how many people are coming southbound on Flood, doing the right turn onto 24th to turn left. They do the right turn onto Tecumseh, and then they're doing the immediate left turn. And I can sit there behind somebody that's blocking the lane, waiting to get into the turn lane. And it shocks me how many people choose that as the route. It seems convoluted to me, but I'm sure that they have a reason and they've done it and they prefer it. But that seems to be a very heavy movement that I don't think anybody would have predicted at the time.
Yeah. And there's no current plan to widen 24th with 6 lanes. There's no funded or design project to do that. Not a project I would support
Yeah, me
anyway,
either.
and I don't
I-
think it would help either, so.
I
think
mean,
it'd make it
I know
worse.
that there's some delay through that corridor, but I mean, when I compare it to other shopping districts and other towns that I've been to and go to, it's just, yes, there's congestion there, and we can continue to look at ways to fix that, but compared to some other corridors, to me, if you want to talk about congestion, go to 19th Street
Yeah,
or more,
yeah.
you don't move.
No.
Yeah, it's not a standstill.
Yeah, we're not at gridlock.
Yeah.
But it does, you will back up at the turn light, at the traffic signals, especially if you're waiting for a turn movement. But, we continue to watch that, and we're always, alert to that and trying to watch what we can do to impact it.
We'll once again bang the table for a transit solution up there that moves people through the
Yes.
area, that pulls cars off the road.
All the parking that's already there.
Absolutely. I mean, if you had an area that was ready-made for a park and ride system, I mean, I think that's it.
Well, and I know that would be an interesting solution for the BID to look at.
Right, exactly.
And, they could, especially with currently just with the Wi-Fi there.
Oh, I completely
You
agree.
could do a lot of, it'd be great if I was there for a tournament, not to get my parking space, to run my kid down to,
Just hop on the circulator and let it take you and
yeah,
bring you
run
back.
down to Tucker's or
Yeah.
Five Guys or whatever to grab a burger and get them back for
I'm
the
with
game.
you. I'm with you.
But no, I know there's been some loose discussions on that.
Just figured it's a great opportunity to plug that idea again.
Definitely. Last two that I had were sidewalk related projects. There are some crosswalks in Norman, I guess, that don't line up with like the ramp. The markings in the middle do not. The bars do not line up from one ramp to the other. Specifically at 24th and Main, one of the north leg of it doesn't. And a guy keeps tagging me on Facebook every single time he goes through it. And so I've told them that I would bring it up. It doesn't line up and would lead you right into the curb if you were blind. So.
We'll look at that and we'll see what we can do about that. When we did that sidewalk project a few years ago,
Yeah.
I think that we probably just needed to follow up better with that, but we'll see what we can do with that. But any other locations where we had that significant problem, we'd be happy to try to get them addressed.
Yeah, maybe at the Porter because the corner's been redone. Porter and Alameda, there's one that's off center a bit, but yeah, anywhere in town, if there's things that have been redone and the crosswalks don't line up now, or the bars don't, I don't know what the official word for
Yeah,
that is, but
crosswalks.
the bars
Yeah.
don't line up with that to where somebody that was visually impaired would lead them into the curb or something. That would be.
No, we agree.
Okay.
We'd like to get those repaired also. We're in total agreement on that.
So I wanted to make sure I brought that up. And then a couple sidewalk projects in Ward 7 anyway. The new Classen project, the sort of Duffy or Brooks, down to Constitution or to 12th Avenue. So I noticed that from the storage center to just south of OU Motel, we
We're
didn't do that.
working on a
Okay.
solution for that now. Basically,
Double check on that one.
when that
I know it's a
project
little
was,
weird.
when that project was designed, that's when there was a developer that's going to be
Right.
working in that area and redoing all that. So we let that out for them to do that work. Since that time, we're working. We think we got some funding left, and we're going to work. Our contractor on our sidewalk projects has a much better cost per linear foot than the contractor that did that project. So what we're going to do is we're going to be asking for a contract amendment to include that, to put that in.
Okay. Just
Trying
want
to pay all the bills on class before we do that.
Okay. Well, I did just want to double check that because I remember, that development and that fell through, I guess. So, and there may be another one coming forward, but nothing.
We
so
can't
far.
afford to wait on that.
Yeah.
We need to fix that, and if they do something to it, they can repair it.
And it's great. The new section is great. The Desire Path is gone. It was constructed over most of it, but there was a little part where the old, and it's grown up now, so you can't even tell that it was ever there. So people are definitely using the new sidewalk. I've been seeing people using the new sidewalk. And then on the same project I had mentioned before, the section on Classen from Brooks, on the west side of Classen, from Brooks down to Enid, basically, is the only missing section on that side of the street for a sidewalk, and just did the other side. And I remember staff mentioned that there's several driveways on that west side, a little more difficult. But I did as a separate project even, but definitely putting it in to get that gap.
That's one that we have on our project list. It's on our, I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure it's on our ranking sheet already. So we're watching that as we go down our ranking and looking for projects to fill. That's in the list for us to be accountable for.
That'll be the only gap from Rock Creek Road, actually Tecumseh Road, all the way down to Highway 9. So, and then any update at all on Duffy Crossing? Not Duffy, Brooks Crossing. BNSF, I know we did our part, so we're waiting.
We did wind up the point to where they asked us to basically, because they have to put in road panels for the crossing, because it's, to get it to be ADA, they have to put in more road panels there. And to do that, they said they needed to replace the entire road crossing. They sent us a bill for that, and what our cost would be. They were willing to split it with us. We worked with our legal team. We sent back some suggestions to BNSF. I have not gotten a response. It is on my list to follow up on. I just haven't had an opportunity to do that. We need to follow up with BNSF. We're willing to say we will pay that cost to get that completed. We've got to move their pipe rail fence for them. We have to build the sidewalk. All they're going to do is drop in the panels, and we got to do the rest of it. But we have some funding left over in that project that I've held on to so that we can come back and construct the sidewalk. So we haven't forgotten, we just,
I knew we constructed our end of the.
yeah,
both
the
sides,
trains
so-
move faster than the process.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're working with them on that. That is one that is still at the top of our list to remediate.
And for those who aren't familiar, that's the last urban crossing in Norman that does not have a sidewalk on either side of it. So,
I think Tecumseh's the last one.
it is, it's becoming more urban, but what I think of is basic, yeah,
I actually get more complaints about Tecumseh than I do Brooks.
without not having a sidewalk. Yeah, I can see that now.
That's
It's
interesting.
being developed around there, yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, any other projects you guys have that you want to bring up or get information about?
I think so.
We're always happy to.
Well, I appreciate the
Get
update
updates.
on everything and letting us throw out projects blindly at you, but
And if you guys ever want us to come in and give you more formal presentations on projects, just let me know. I'm happy, or we can just leave it like this where you guys we can kind of leave it a little more open, whichever you want to
Yeah,
do.
I
But
like it.
we're happy to just have a capital project update as part of this meeting
yeah,
and work through
Love it.
questions and problems and make sure that we're all moving in one direction.
This was really helpful.
yeah, okay.
Yep.
Anything final from anybody? No?
Main Street Two-Way.
Yeah.
Just gonna say it.
Main Street 2. And I think it's going to be necessary once Main Street goes to 2, then it'll be,
I
like I said,
agree.
there'll be 4 lanes going one direction, only one. So, but anyway, I'm excited about it, and I appreciate all of you. I appreciate all the work this year that we've been able to do in the committee, and we'll get a month off and then come back in August and with a new list of priorities and goals that we want to accomplish. And the 4 of us will still be here, so we'll see who else joins the committee after then. So thank you, staff. Thank you, Scott, everybody, for your work. And if that's it, then this meeting is adjourned. Okay.
Love it.